Well, I've heard, back in the day, we used to call each other turkeys, which is like dweebs, I guess. And I bring that up because it's our Thanksgiving episode, and we'll probably be just talking a lot of turkey. It's hard to get into an episode to be serious when the one, like, how do we look? You look like a bunch of fucking idiots. So, that was a true commentary with somebody I respect. But it's birthday boy Greg.
Hey, hi. I made it. I'm still recovering from my gig last night.
I was out with my DVC friends for All the Devils, and if you missed that, you really missed a really good show. And MJ got me again, made fun of me. So, and we very thrilled for our Thanksgiving episode. Who could we not have back? But I had to conjure him up again, wave some Guinness in a plate at the graveyard, pull that second president of the United States up. We give a very warm welcome to the president of our second president, John Adams.
Thank you for having me again.
So this is sort of like, I always think of for Thanksgiving, well, I played a sock puppet town crier in school for Thanksgiving, and I didn't realize it. Well, hi, it's a fiesta. We'll go burn some witches if this was true.
Fiesta boogie.
But this is we used to make those cornucopias out of remember the construction paper?
Yep.
And put all the cool things. So this is like a cornucopia of topics. We'll talk about Thanksgiving a little, so whatever anybody wants to toss out. But one topic I want to bring up, because we see it a lot now, and I know, you're sort of told to be some way. You're supposed to do this, be good, you don't think about it. But the idea of tipping these days, John and I have been thinking about it a lot. Maybe Greg has. And John?
Every time I run out of money, I think about it.
Well, yeah, tipping, it's everywhere.
I give you a
today.
tip, we look like jackasses with those hats on.
Tipping is everywhere, and it doesn't really matter where you go, right? Whether it's a full-service restaurant or a counter service, or you go up and place an order, and then they give you the food in a bag at the end of the counter, they're asking for a tip. And some of that I think is justified, and some of it I don't think is justified. What do you feel about it?
In some ways, too, it's like, I like to tip, being in the service industry, like if I go to a restaurant or something, but I'm just not, I'm not horrible about service, but I'm not going to just do for, if you're really good and everything, obviously you get a little more, but I'm not just going to be here.
The thing is, I don't like the way they're doing it now with where they put it on the bill, like estimated gratuity, and they put it on there as a computation, like it's actually part of the thing, like it's like they're reminding you, make sure you give us something, And I'm not saying I don't like the tip. I like the tip. Like the other night, somebody else paid for the dinner, and I just threw a 20 out there, and but it's just, I don't know, it's weird. But having said that, like when I do the gigs, and we pass the tip thing around, and, you end up with $30, $40 a piece at the end of the night. I mean, it makes you feel good. Number one, you're appreciated. Number two, I don't know, obviously it helps your budget,
Well, certainly. It is income for people, and that's something that is a pretty big topic nowadays in the U.S. because most of the tipping has been a result of a sub-minimum wage, right? Where a server, a waitress or a waiter was making $3.25 an hour, and the customers who went in and purchased food and had that service were expected to compensate that server for their time. And
how did that all start, though, having it be such a low? Was it just because they figured you're going to get tips, or was it just bad trying to get something for nothing?
I knew at one time how it started. I don't remember any longer. And it really doesn't even matter how it started at this point, because we're at a point where restaurants are charging a premium wage. Now, I'm a business consultant. I worked restaurants for 39 years.
Right.
I understand the margins are very, very slim for most restaurants. So in order to compensate a server with an actual wage that they could come in and make $15, $18, $20, $22 an hour and not expect tips to make up the difference between, say, what they are paying and minimum wage, the prices of food in a restaurant would have to go up.
Right.
I understand that. I don't believe that most Americans who are advocating for what they would call a living wage in a restaurant for a server or somebody who's on a tipped wage understand that increase in payment to a server is going to equal an increase in payment from the customer to the restaurant. And I don't believe that the U.S. is actually entirely ready for that, especially in the recession that we're in right now. And everybody says, well,
actually,
we're not in a recession, right?
A funny no, we're in a depression.
But, do you think, though, maybe that with the number of younger people, let's face it, like you get a lot of young people working in a restaurant, right? And now, do you think the attitude has become like, well, great, now I'm making $15 or $17, so I don't have to do as much. I don't need the tips, so the service suffers? Do you think that's the motivation to work better for the tip is gone or less? Or?
Well, I think you're hitting a bit of a point there, Greg, and basically if the tip is an entitlement, then they don't actually have to perform good service in order to make that tip, correct?
Right.
Right, and I think that does happen. I don't think that happens as often as we might think.
Right.
I think most people who go to work think they're doing a good job. The problem with that is sometimes they're not doing a good job, and they don't have somebody in leadership to tell them, hey, you need to improve this.
Right.
That's a whole separate subject.
Actually, a good lesson in socialism where one of my friends would always say she could make tons of tips at the bar, so good socialist lesson. They would have the thing about like places that would pool the tips.
Right.
She hated that.
Well, my son is a bartender in Denver, Colorado, and he works at least 3 different places right now that pool tips. And he has no problem with it, but he's much more egalitarian than I am. He likes the whole everybody rises with a rising tide kind of idea. And I believe that, but I believe it's individual effort and individual accomplishment that helps other people raise up because they see what they might be able to accomplish, and then they work to get there. Where his idea is, hey, if we are in this bar and everybody's working hard, then we should all get the same.
We're all in this together type of thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would think more you raise the standards and have people go for the standards, something to meet the goals and everything.
Plus, you got to have an honest person that's counting the money and divvying it up.
Yeah. So, being serious, we have to continue being serious. How was the Rev? Peyton?
Wonderful. Oh, that was a great show.
Who was that?
Reverend Peyton and his big damn band played in Buffalo at Buffalo Ironworks.
Have you ever seen them, Greg?
No.
I will describe them to you.
His big damn band.
They look like an authentic rock band. They sound like an authentic rock band. They smell like an authentic rock band.
They've got a great sense of humor. The 3-part band, including Reverend Peyton, who plays guitar, sings, and his thumb plays bass. His wife, Breezy, is on the washboard and a big drum. And then they have a gentleman on the drums, which I don't remember his name. Fantastic group, though. And the Hoot and Hollers opened, and I was very, very impressed with the Hoot and Hollers. So much so that I planned on going to see them at Skylark locally on this last Wednesday, though I had something get right in my way and I wasn't able to do it.
Oh, shit.
That's
I wish I would have known that.
I was like beyond with the mold allergy in the knee.
What happened?
Certain someone, I won't mention her name, it sounds like so sexist, but she went to hug me after her gig at Archive.
And you got mold spores?
And what she did, you're a bad boy, you birthday boy. And she left up a little bit, and I twisted my knee.
Oh, no.
Doesn't that just sound like an old, like...
Don't hug me so hard.
Later in the night, I was like, this really hurts. No, this really hurts. And then you look online, you never want to look online or anything. Well, I already know what's his death.
Yeah. Right. You're dying of knee cancer.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
So then I looked and goes, well, average time 2 weeks to 2 months.
Oh, no.
And then you feel it's never going to go away.
The aches and pains as we age, right?
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, so how was the concert there compared to here?
So I thought that the sound here locally...
it was at Iron Smoke here.
Right, Iron Smoke in Fairport was the best I've ever seen them. The sound quality in Iron Smoke was very, very good.
Oh, yeah.
The sound quality at Buffalo Ironworks was good, but it wasn't fantastic. And that's the problem with a lot of these venues is they have a concept go into a space, It's not designed acoustically to have bands, and they go, "Hey, I want to have bands."
The industrial thing where they take an old building.
That's what I've heard.
Sounds bouncing all over.
Yeah.
And I was going to go see Lucero in Essex, but again, But I'm going to go see McHale, I've heard like a little about Essex. I've heard like the Bauman went to that.
Okay.
Said the sound was good, but I've also heard there's some questions because they've got that ceiling too.
I had a discussion like with somebody about that. It's like it becomes so chic. Oh yeah, great. Let's go into an old factory with the pipes still there and the heating ducts and no. That's not conducive to music and glass and it's become a cool thing to do, but it's not smart. You can't hear anybody talk, number one.
Well, the sound bounces all over.
Yeah. Everything's high ceilings now, and it's weird.
I love the look. I don't like the sound, especially for a guy with terrible hearing. When something's bouncing around. I wear hearing aids every day, I do not have a directional any longer. I can't tell where a sound is coming from when I hear it, unless I know where the person is and I recognize their voice. So if I'm in one of those high ceiling areas, somebody could say something to me, and I'll be spinning around looking to find out who's talking.
It's just a swirl, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you're probably shutting me out right now.
Well, I know that you're talking, so I know it's you. In this case, I can know exactly where the direction's coming from. But, if we are in a crowd and somebody says, "Hey, John," and I'll be looking everywhere because I don't know where it's come from.
But if they say, "Hey, asshole," you'd be looking.
Right, I'll know exactly where that came from.
You guys. This is going to be fun.
But have you ever, the question I asked, I would think a band you would love would be the Reverend Horn Heat.
You sent me a link. I have not watched it yet.
Yeah, he's awesome.
But I've heard great things about him.
The only thing about them is I remember, I would put them, they've mellowed a bit. I remember the first times I was warned about how loud they were.
I have a DVD of a live thing from Texas with them. They rock it.
And back in the day, also, Jim Heath would preach a lot more.
Yeah.
But so I'm going, when they played at Milestones, and I'm going, I don't know if I want to go to this. This great bill that was like Super Suckers, remember the Mofos?
Is that the building that was on East Avenue?
Yep.
Where
the courthouse, kind of where the court building, the library is, a couple doors down from there.
So I go, and they weren't anything more than anybody else in terms of loud, which is good. But the Rev was sort of standoffish. I was talking to Jimbo afterwards for a long time.
Jimbo, he kills it. His drummer is really good, Scott, somebody or other. That guy is really good. I mean, he's got a pretty big set for a rockabilly band. I mean, 2-floor toms and big, it's a rock and roll set. Big.
And I always have that fascination with the upright bass. I don't know, for some reason I really just love it.
It's a different style.
Those rockabilly dudes, don't they look so cool when they play it like...
they slap it. It's a different style.
Yeah, you slap something.
You make it tough, man.
But Ryan Hurley for the Grease Creepers, the way his hands, it's like the Flash, the speed of him. And I've always terrified though when he does the one part, the Rev and Jimbo would do too, where they stand on the bass.
Oh, yeah.
I'm always waiting for that one show where
the foot goes through it or something. I think they have it reinforced, though. I think those guys have those things modified.
I'm sure.
Well, I asked Ryan about, I was like, it's really cool playing. He goes, the pain in the ass carrying it.
It's probably heavy. It's probably reinforced with steel.
Try to imagine taking it on a plane or something.
You would love Grease Creepers, too.
What kind of music?
It's exactly what we've been talking about.
Oh, great. Okay.
And they did their Halloween show at Lux again, in which was fun. It was late night, but they're good friends of mine, and they sort of play more. But you would exactly everything we've talked about. You ever seen them, Greg?
No.
You'd like
what style is it? Rockabilly?
Exactly what we're talking about. They use the term psychobilly, kind of like that.
So one of the most commercially successful rockabilly kind of outfits was the Stray Cats, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I loved the Stray Cats.
Well, they kind of brought it back. They brought it into the public view.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was a kid when they were bringing that back into the public view. I had no idea what rockabilly was before the Stray Cats.
Right.
And after that, I was like, this is a cool kind of music.
Yep.
But that was at the end of the 70s, sort of, when the 50s was 50s retro.
Right.
Like Sha-Da-Da, remember Sha-Da-Da? Bowser Bowman.
Yeah.
And the guy who got lost, in my opinion, was Robert Gordon, who did a couple albums with Link Raven in the 80s.
I have a VHS, which I lovingly still have 3 working VHS players, but I found a Stray Cats from Tokyo or something.
Actually,
Japan,
some videos
really
I could give
good.
you because mine kicked it.
What's that?
I have some videos I could give you.
You should, yeah. Because I'll tell you, I always say this. I think VHS music videos sound better than DVDs. I just think that the sound quality is better because there's more. The tape is wider and you can fit the frequencies. There's more. The spectrum is better. Because DVDs, everything's compressed and squashed, and it's different technology.
I actually have a lot of tapes like from Night Flight and stuff too, like old from I used to tape on VHS.
Oh. So anyway, sorry, I digressed.
I remember I was 15 or 16 and had just gotten out of a band, the only band I'd ever been a part of, and mainly because I can't.
Then
play.
they became the Beatles.
Well, mainly because I can't play music very well, or I didn't put enough time into it. One of those two things. So this gentleman that I knew, who was a little bit older than I was, had a vinyl player. So he had all of these records, and he used to get the master records. And he'd say, I don't like DVDs because the sound isn't the same. And my friends and I, we protested about this. And
right.
Of course, he says, well, let's listen to them side by side. And we brought a DVD or a CD player up, and he had his album player, his record player, and he played them both, and the record player crushed the CD.
Oh, yeah.
It was
he must have kept his records in really good shape.
The guy was a fanatic.
Yeah.
He was
it's like the old Chico Marx joke with Groucho where it's like $5 we play, $10 we won't play, $15 we practice. Well, how much does it cost to pay you to don't practice? You couldn't afford it because if you don't practice, we can't play.
I know.
I've always wanted to do a skit like that. No, somebody's had to do it. You get like a band that's so bad, you lock the doors, you can let people in for free. They have to pay to leave.
Yeah, right.
I'd like to throw back to the tipping conversation. I don't think that was completed. We changed real quick.
What happens is, I heard like by Bonaventure and like in Livonia and in the country, they would tip cows.
That's a different kind of tipping.
They tipped them though. Why? Here's some cud.
Yeah.
So let's talk about counter service. You walk in, you have a register and somebody taking an order, and right in front of the register is a little bowl or jar or something, and it's got $15, $20, $30 in it because of the people who've come before you that day, right?
Right.
What do you think is legitimate? Somebody comes up, you order a cheeseburger, fries, and a Coke. Down about 15 feet is where they're going to hand off a tray or a bag. Who do you tip? How much do you tip?
Right.
Should you tip in that instance? What do you think?
It depends on your... I mean, I guess it depends. For me, it always depends on how much money I have on me. And usually if you're going to fast food or something, you're kind of like, well, I only got $10. I got to get... And then if you only have like $1.15 left or something, you can just throw the $1 in. And just let it go. I mean, that's kind of what I do.
In that instance,
I'm very philosophical today.
Right. So in that instance, these people are making $15, $17, $18, $20 an hour in order to make food for you.
Right.
They're not a sub-minimum wage. It's not full service. They're literally taking an order, cooking the food, packaging it, and handing it over a counter. So they're not coming to your table to ask if you want a refill on a drink or anything like that. It's all self-service in that sense, where you walk to the counter and grab your tray or your bag. Is a tipping a legitimate thing to do in that environment is the question that I'm asking.
I guess it goes back to what I said before, is I feel like it's become a sort of a obligation now, and it's expected, and kind of like you're a bad customer or you're a jerk if you don't, or you're cheap, or... You know what I mean? It's a bad connotation now if you don't tip. It's kind of like PC stuff, Right. It's like it's become almost like, oh man, if I don't tip, this guy's going to think I'm a jerk, and then he's going to ignore me or something like that. It's like at a bar. Remember, you're like, okay, if you tip a bartender at the first drink, they're going to come back to you right away every time you want another drink.
Sure.
If you don't, that's just the mindset. Hey, this guy's not doing nothing for me, so he can wait.
Right. And in the bar situation, when you were competing with 20 or 30 other people in order to get somebody's attention, it might make sense to tip a little bit more.
Just one of those tangents because I'm laughing thinking one of my friends, and she's a very virtuous person, and she won't be named. I'm bitching at a bar one time about nobody will serve me. So she goes, just watch. She leans over the bar, twirls her hair and smiles at the bartender, comes running down.
There's that too.
Wow.
I thought you were going to say she put her boobs on the counter or something.
Well, I'm afraid I haven't had implants yet, so I can't do that.
Well, get going.
But I was actually thinking of it like I won't even... I'll keep her name, just save her reputation in private, but I was out for coffee at a place, and friend comes up to the person and goes, did you work here years ago? She's like, she goes, well, I was fired for being an asshole. And she told the whole story about, this is like when she was 20, and she said that, well, my mom, and her mom was like my dad, can't do anything, it's like a comedy, right? Well, I called in sick because I was going to a concert in Fredonia, and the manager was all worried and called, how is she feeling? Oh, she went to Fredonia?
Oh, wow. The mom threw her under the bus.
Ooh.
That's funny.
That's like my dad. I would tell my dad, say this. He's like, oh, no, he's here.
Yeah, well, too much.
I can hear him in the background.
But, this brings up, like, the idea of tipping. This brings up the whole idea of conformity and how people are supposed to conform. They tell you to act one way. There's the famous experiment, which is there's like 8 people. Now 7 people are in on it, and they'll put up a formula like something is something equals. The first 7 people give the wrong answer. Now the last person knows it's supposed to be. It's like 4 plus 4 equals 8. But the person most of the time they found would give the same wrong answer.
Wow. Yeah, compliance.
I mean, look at it this way. Like, as far as the wage thing, like, I was thinking about this the other day, too. Like, where I am, it's a certain amount per hour. Okay. So you go to another store, let's say like Aldi's or something like that. Their hourly rate is better. Now, it's not as fancy, and it's not as, there's not as many bells and whistles and whatnot. But guess what? You got people going there because they can make $18,
And I guess if you're a manager, you could do really well.
Or, for $3 or $4 more, it adds up. And, even if it's not the greatest working environment, most people just think immediate, I want more money in the check.
And the other thing is, why isn't anybody else adapted to this? Why don't they let the cashiers sit down like they do at all these?
I think they do it if you have like a disability or something.
But I mean, anybody. I mean,
I know. I think that's great. I think that's cool because it sucks to stand there and cash people out. I did it once at a cafeteria a long time ago at Kodak Park. It was terrible. It was like 2 hours of like your brain just whizzing around and Anyway, but what do you think of that? Do you think that people just want more money?
Well, sure. I mean, that's the incentive, right? People do want more money, and that's how these tip jars have popped up all over everything. Somebody says, okay, I want a cup of coffee. So they grab the jar of coffee, they pour the coffee into a cup, they put a top on it, and hand it to you, and expect $1 for that service.
Yeah.
That's performing a function. Is it really service? And years ago, when I would go into a specific coffee shop and I knew the specific crew that worked there on an almost daily basis, I was on a first-name basis with 90% of the people.
Oh, so they were spiking it with Bushmills?
Well, when I knew the crew, I would tip $1 at a transaction, and if something... you were coming up on a holiday or something, a fiver would go into the tip jar. And because I liked these people and I trusted these people and they would see me coming through the door, they'd have my coffee ready when I got to the counter if there wasn't a line. And so you're paying for service. Since that experience, which was 15-ish years ago, the only thing that I found has happened in general, this is not in every instance, but in general, is the service level has dropped from people engaging and smiling and saying hello and how's your day and having a conversation and actually providing a little bit of interaction is just pouring a cup of coffee and handing it over a counter. There's no service. It's just a task, right? And
the girl's wearing a nose ring, so I won't tip her because of that.
Really?
Some of my friends wear nose rings, dude.
That's pretty harsh.
No, I'm being kind of facetious. But what I'm saying is, you got these kids again. And I know because I'm an old guy now.
Rotten kids.
He can say whatever
Damn
he wants.
lazy,
Get
no
off my
motivation.
lawn.
Well, no, but they don't smile at you. They're like, yeah, what do you want? Or okay, yeah, here. I mean, they're not even trying sometimes.
But I like John talked about the idea too of you have no choice. Remember you were talking to him.
So yeah, popped up on Google just yesterday that in some places when they take that monitor that they're punching in your order in and they turn it towards you, and as they turn it toward you, what do they say? They go, it's just going to ask you a question.
Right.
What does that mean? That means go ahead and tip me, right? And so it has the 10, 15, 20, 25%. Now, in the case of counter service, if you're tipping 25% at counter service and you're not tipping 25% for full service, you're out of your mind. However,
agreed.
In some parts of the country, there is no option for no tip. You can't go past the screen until you select a tip.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't personally encountered that. If I did, I saw a section that said customize tip. Customize it to 0. How can somebody be so bold to just, it's become an entitlement? And I don't have anything wrong, really, at my core with tipping. I know I sound like I'm talking against this. I don't have a problem with tipping.
Me either.
If the crew is giving you service, if the people who you're interacting with are giving you service. But I don't like tipping for somebody who's doing a task, especially when they're already paid higher than minimum wage to do so.
And not even putting out much effort.
Well, I have my usual weird sense of humor when it hits me, and whenever I see my friends play at the Little, I always give a tip. But I decided to do a little further the one day just because I felt like, so besides putting in cash, what I did was I put in a piece of paper for a tip, take the Dodgers with the spread.
It's probably not a tip they appreciate.
I was at a diner once, I think it was in the Midwest or down south, and it was like 3 a.m, and it was not very crowded in there. And it took me forever to get an omelet or something. And they had little survey cards, and it said, how can we better our service or something? So I put, move the hen house closer to the restaurant, and
wow.
Left it there.
Actually, I bet you both been to places like that, though. They're those places that just, they're all regulars, where, like, if you stop in them, like, the room stops to look at you, and you sit there forever for service.
Yeah.
But I think there's something too sociological about the tipping thing. I think it's become a little microcosm of, like let's say the more younger generation, they don't think so much. They just think that's what you do. You go in there and you get your $8 coffee, let's say, or your $5 coffee and your all the different syrups and different things and lattes and then they just think, oh yeah, sure, and then they just throw in an extra $3 or something. Because I just think money doesn't seem to have the value of the money doesn't seem to have the same thing to the Xers and stuff. I don't know. Am I wrong? I think
one of the points about even like what we're talking about is nobody should just allow themselves to be spoon-fed. Whenever you hear anything, you should try to think about things. Don't just go along because the crowd does.
Right. Well, I guess that's what I'm saying too. Yeah, it's just become sort of this is the way it's done, right? Yeah.
Well, transitioning from the tipping idea of giving extra money, what do you think about the charitable requests that you register? You go into Dollar General and they say, hey, would you like to add $1 to help educate people on how to read?
Actually, could have had that picture of us with the hats. Will you help these poor
souls? What's wrong with these people?
We want to buy them coloring books to get them.
I have no issues at all with charity either. And by the way, with tipping, I typically tip 20 to 25% if there's actual
like
service.
we have our lunch coming up. 25 years now of the boys having our lunch.
Wow.
We're not boys anymore.
Yeah, I usually say no thanks.
But we have like the people for that. Whoever is our they have the Christmas present.
That's great.
Because the way we split the bills, just toss it in. It's the holidays.
Sometimes I'll do $1 or something at those.
I'll see you at the restaurant. I'll see you. We have a guest waiter today.
Yeah. But see, that's another interesting point. Now, you being who you are and your background, you go to a place, and I'm some kid and I don't know who you are, and I just act the way I act, and then you don't tip as much, and then you're going, what the hell's wrong with that guy? And he doesn't know that you know what's going on, that you've been involved, and it's like you're kind of like, well, I didn't get much good service, so this is the tip reflects the service. I mean, that's the way that was the whole concept in the beginning, I guess.
Right. And currently, tips are almost an entitlement, correct?
Right.
Right.
It might be on charity, though, too, is do your research.
Know who you're giving money
Make
to.
sure your money's going to who you're giving the money to.
I get so much junk in the mail, I generally
I have
don't
my
give it to
local
them.
things I give to. I know it's going for something good. Louisville Boxing, which is a great cause in my opinion, and I give to them. And I've seen actually some of these kids now going pro and how good they're doing.
Sounds like Rob is advocating for children to punch people.
That's right. Violence in our streets. Don't we have enough, Rob?
Now Greg's going to go ahead and you two are going to blame me.
It's because Rob gave to that charity.
That's right. Everything I did, I punched you because somebody cared.
Yeah, I get a letter. It's like I get a letter like before. I was just fine. I couldn't, I felt like timid, but now I just punch people out. It's all because you helped me when I needed to.
I have a way to
Thank you
express
so much.
myself.
So we're really giving thanks for a lot of stuff on Thanksgiving, but it is a Thanksgiving episode. But I was going to ask you, for the Native American perspective, what have you seen about, how do they feel, how do you like about Thanksgiving these days?
It depends on who you ask. It really,
And I'm
really
using
does.
the term Native,
Right.
I'm just...
And so, for anybody that doesn't...
my preferred pronoun.
my ethnic background is Irish, English, and Mohawk.
So alcoholic.
It's a thing. It really is a thing. It's
Holds a grudge.
that is something that many in my family on both sides have struggled with, and it's definitely a thing. So you have to make your choices, right? You have to make your choices. And so on the Native side, talking to my cousins.
Oh, sorry to interrupt though. What do natives themselves prefer in terms of being called like that for their tribe or natives?
Native or indigenous, or by their tribe,
See, I like indigenous better than native for some reason, but see, I always say it's what you are. You give your choice of what you want to be called, not what some other person said you should be called.
Well, when I was growing up, they all called we all called ourselves Indians because there wasn't really any other concept of something larger, because that's what everybody was taught going to school. The people who were in this area, the geographic area of the United States before the Pilgrims arrived, were Indians.
Right.
That's all we knew, right?
Did you ever hear it in school?
They were actually natives or indigenous peoples.
Did you ever hear it in school, though? I still remember to this day, Skoom for the 5 tribes.
No.
Seneca, Cayuga,
Okay.
I'm freaking mold allergies. No, it's the Mohawks, not the mold allergies.
Right.
It went up my nose as I was trying to say Oneata. But I still remember that to this day.
Originally the 5 nations and now the 6 nations.
Yeah, I've always felt that the Native Americans are just such overlooked, and they're just such a raw deal, and just so why we go to such lengths for certain groups of people and not others is kind of boggles my mind, and it bothers me. Well, if anything, the Native Americans should have been front and center of getting a fair deal and more rights and all that.
Well, the reality was they were a conquered people, right?
Right.
And when you have a conquered people anywhere in the world, they are a population that's pushed aside subjugated. Those people are not respected, and that's exactly what's happened over many years. Now, it might be changing in the U.S. right now, and I hope that it is.
It is little by little, but it just seems like we're working to help a lot of other folks first, and I don't know, it's just weird.
Well, I'll tell you, there are two types of people in the United States that do not really have control over specific actions and decisions in their lives. So when you live on a reservation as a native, You don't own your house. You don't own the land.
Right.
You own your personal property, like your bed and your clothing and your car and that sort of thing. But your house and your land they're administrated by the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
It's kind of like
right?
back to the serf days, right? Like the lord and master type thing or whatever, landowner thing.
In a sense, it's designed to preserve that for the next generation. So if I was living on a reservation and I wanted to sell this property to Rob, and I sold that property to Rob, then that property is no longer available for the next generation.
Right,
correct?
That makes sense.
And so that's the idea, to preserve this area. However, if you don't have autonomy as an individual over land or housing, what does that mean? Well, there's another group of people that it's the disabled, right? The mentally disabled, the people who cannot take care of themselves, the people who have to have other people making decisions for them. This is what the Native people are facing in the U.S. when they live on a reservation, is they actually do not have the decisions. They don't have the ability to make decisions, and they don't have the authority to make decisions for their lives in the property that they live on. And so they're told, this is how you need to use your property, this is where you need to live.
Right.
So it's different than every other group.
It's true. Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
I was really
right.
influenced by
That's
Russell Means' books, Where White Men Fear to Tread, and he was talking about just in terms of how the reservations were, and he was saying his fear was that the government was trying to turn America into one big Indian reservation.
Well, when you ask the Native people whether we should have government involved in our lives, what do you think the answer is going to be?
My old allergies
be no.
every now and then, sorry.
Got to be no.
Oh, hell no.
No, and he was saying, there's some good speeches from Russell about how Marxism is an anathema to their way of life.
Well, this is a very, very complicated subject, and one that I'm not super, super versed on. I mean, I have family who live on the reservation. When I went to see that show just last week, Reverend Peyton, one of my cousins, joined me, who no longer lives on the res. He actually lives off the res. He decided to go and purchase his own home and have autonomy for his life. But many of his brothers, still live on the reservation. Mm. And that being stated, you can ask different members of a family how they feel about that system, and you're going to get different answers almost from each person. Because it's just like everything else, right? Where you have a different idea of government than I have. We might be very similar, but there's going to be some differences, and that's how it is.
Is there a lot of that resignation, like, well, this is where I am, and this is where I'll stay, and there's no hope?
There's some of that, of course, yeah. And when you go onto a res, and you drive down one of the roads, it's a very interesting thing to observe, because you'll have one house that's just beautifully kept. They keep their lawn, it's clean, everything's where it's supposed to be. They have garbage cans, and they have barrels, and they have garages, and they're all organized. And then you go to the next house over, and there's literally garbage strewn across the lawn. Right. And you can have 2 or 3 houses just like that in a row, and then you'll have 2 or 3 houses that are beautifully kept. And it's just like everybody else, right? If you go into neighborhoods, you see some people who keep their homes really nicely, and you see some people who don't keep their homes really nicely.
Yeah, well, even when you go down to get like the cigarettes down,
well, see, my dad used to go to
there, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on.
And I'd go before gas was a lot cheaper there, but like my dad would go on his cigarette runs. So we go down, the farther he went into the res, the more deals. But there was the one place we went to, and I always remember because the guy at the door reminded me of Wolverine Logan. And he got to always give me the
little tip of the hat or the wave.
If anybody should be in on the weed thing, the pot thing, it should be the natives. I mean, I think they should get first shot, because they're already doing it, but... And you know what I mean? This whole thing of getting guys that have been, well, we arrested you and you've been in jail, so you get the license first.
Well, did you ever hear the old joke, too? Did you ever hear the old joke, and I'm not going to use the name because it'll get demonetized, but, one of my friends said, imagine, the result of a New England and Washington Super Bowl. New England cheats and steals the stadium.
Wow.
But how do you feel about, in terms of, have you ever heard, like, anybody, their views on native sport team names?
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to hear that. But one thing I want to say about Washington, and again, I'm not going to say the old name because, you know, YouTube and everything else. But that logo, I always say, get rid of the stupid name they have now. Come up with something more respectful. But bring back the logo. It was designed by a Blackfeet chieftain. No, it's legit.
Well, it's legit for that guy, and for some people who may be part of the Blackfeet tribe didn't like it. And so, there again, we have this huge variance of opinions on what this is. Some people who are in the Native communities don't care at all about that, and others care a great deal about that.
See, now I've heard, like, one of my friends, Native, would say, like, I knew, like, people, you know, they hated it. They hated, like, any, like, high schools or anything that had it. But some others will say, and I've seen groups speak for it, of Natives saying, it gives us some representation.
That's true, it does. It absolutely does.
But, like, some of them, like, wasn't the Cleveland Indians, that wasn't the picture of the guy, I mean...
Well, Chief Wahoo,
and he was like, grimacing and like,
yeah, he
mean,
looked like a ding-dong.
Like he's gonna, you know, knife you.
Not even that, but he looked like, you know, an old cartoon version of...
Right.
Idiotic.
Right, with the feather and the... Woo, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah, and some of that is just born from a complete ignorance about the local tribes and what they actually look like.
Come on. Ask any of the fans, okay, can you tell me anything about, like, Seminole culture, about this? Oh, they're what?
I think TV has sort of been better at that, like Yellowstone and that show, what's the show about the guy in Wyoming? Longmire. Those are pretty good depictions, I think, of the struggle and the situation. You know, because you got the res police, and then they can't do certain things, and then they got to bring the other guys.
If you ever want to read it, I think you'd really like it too, John. There's Jason Aaron wrote this comic book. You can just get a graphic novel called Scalped. It's about crimes on a res.
Oh.
And all the corruption by the tribal council. It's like a little, almost like mafia.
Wow.
Really, really well done.
Well, there's that too. There's crime on a res just like everywhere else.
Right.
And corruption in the administration, just like everywhere else.
I don't know how they haven't made this into a mini-series, though, or something yet. I mean, it's incredibly good. You know, and again, we always, you know, when we have our killer clown on our musicians, we don't talk to deeper topics. But we're not putting out any right answers or wrong answers. You know, if you like what you're hearing, and of course you do, because it's us, go research for yourself. But hope you think about things.
That's right. Get philosophical. Dig deep.
We've each thrown out a couple names of the different tribes in the U.S. Yeah.
How many were there? 600, basically?
Oh, it was hundreds.
Actually, sorry, I was thinking of venomous snakes.
Well, I think you're right on that. You know, when you talk about the old maps of the different tribes, there was somewhere around close to 600. My number that I'm thinking of is 500, but that could just
you know, it's
be
between,
low.
It's here, there. We might not have known about this, that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you take Rochester as a geographic region, right? There was a different tribe in Rochester than there was in Buffalo. You know, you're talking 50, 60 miles away.
I don't know
right?
These days. I think they think the Bills are our team here myself.
The Bills. People are so happy with them right now.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was going to tell a joke about...
And they killed the messenger.
Well, I would tell a Bills joke, but I forgot it halfway through.
Kind of like how they forgot their play.
That's a rub.
I was going to buy Josh Allen's coffee, but I fumbled it on the way to the, the cashier.
That's terrible.
But somebody said, I'll get you one. They tried to throw it to me. Some guy intercepted it.
Jesus.
Rob, you are.
I'm staying quiet on this one.
Those are some cutting comments.
You want me to be the bad guy in the show, Greg, to be the good guy?
It's good. You were talking to the wrong guy.
Your joke was wide right, Greg.
Football and me, I don't get it.
Let's follow up on that conversation on charitable giving at the Register.
Okay.
I mentioned a reading program through Dollar General, which I think that's a great idea, to have a reading program for people that are illiterate. However, we have absolutely no idea really what happens when we take that dollar and hand it over to another organization that's going to administer it to a charity, correct?
Right.
And what happens also is if we have a charitable giving, which we could potentially have privately with our own tax as a write-off, $200, $300, $400, $500, right? Write off a little bit of taxes. You're giving your money to another organization. Now they get the write-off from your money.
Right.
Interesting idea.
I think an idea, though, is just have them listen to the carnival. It's free. They'll learn tons.
Well,
every bit of your dollar.
They don't have to read. They can just listen.
Correct. That's a good point.
We'll
Greg.
recommend a book every week.
It's, that goes back to incentive. If somebody who is running a corporation wants to do one of these programs, one of the huge incentives for one of these programs is that organization is going to get the tax write-off from other people's money. I told you before, I used to work at a local retailer that sold their items for $1. And one of the things that we were instructed to do when we worked there was go around and find the 2s and 3s and 4s types items, which were just kind of hanging out and not selling on the shelves, and pull them all up to the front and put them in
the impulse aisle.
Well, we put them in a box at the register, and it would be, would you like to purchase this for charity? And people would just pony up the money all day long. They pony up the money, and so the items that we weren't selling through on, we could then take those and put them in a box, and they would go out to a local charity. Which
that's good. That's smart.
Great that it's doing that, and it's really neat that somebody's getting that as gift received, but it wasn't out of an altruistic sense. It was out of, we're not selling this, let's take it to the register and tell people we're donating to charity. And it did get donated, but the reason it was being donated wasn't because we were
nice guys
as a company, nice people, and wanted to donate to local charities. It was because we wanted to get rid of that product to make room for the next.
Yeah, well, business, I mean, you have you have to just do things for business sake. I don't know.
I think, too, especially for poor kids, how a toil mean to them, too, sometimes. I was thinking when I was in Russia. So one of the things they said was, actually bring, like juicy fruit gum or something, right? So I'm at the circus, somewhat sober from, but I see
the vodka had worn off.
I don't think, I was in a haze pretty much. I'm still glad actually with Putin there, I worry about that Russian flag I stole.
Oh boy.
But the one, so I'm at, so there's like a Soviet family there, and I got a pack of juicy fruit gum, and now this always sticks in my head where I offered it to the kid, and these days would be arrest that man right there. But so the kid actually looks at his parents, and they give the way this kid these days, a kid gives kids gum now, it's like asshole throwing at you. The way this kid held the gum and looked at it, it's like I can't forget that.
Wow,
and that's
cool.
One of my things I always say from being to a country like that. That's some time where I have my own brand of patriotism, where this place is the den of all evil.
Well, look at back in the World War.
Yeah, try going to any of these. You'll kiss the ground here.
Look at the World War II stuff, man. A bar of chocolate was you'd kill for a bar of chocolate. You know what I mean? Or
I might still kill for a bar of chocolate.
The stockings and all that stuff. Stuff was just scarce,
Yeah.
I mean, because they forced it to be scarce because that's all part. The money goes somewhere else. It's okay, we're not going to make cool stuff. We're going to make guns,
rationing,
and planes,
and everything.
And rationing, yeah. I mean, I listen to these old radio shows, and they still have the commercials or some of the storylines. There's a Green Hornet one about, I had to throw in the comic book thing.
Next week.
But they even had the rationing story where the gas coupons, these guys were black marketing gas coupons,
wow.
and all that stuff,
So it is, we're winding down a bit. It is supposedly our Thanksgiving episode, so.
Oh, we haven't talked about Thanksgiving.
So a little bit about just Thanksgiving memories and how the day is for everybody. And my bold allergy interrupts again.
I always used to we used to go bowling a lot.
We did too, every year.
Or else
on Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Then it kind of changed to movies, watching whatever movie they have on every year, Wizard of Oz or some crap or something. But yeah, we used to bowl. Yeah, you'd go bowling and.
You know what they would have on in the morning years ago on WR? It wasn't Godzilla, but it was Laurel and Hardy, the music box, but then they had
yeah.
the 66 Batman movie on.
Oh, yeah, that's great. I mean,
No kidding.
I watch the parade once in a while, and
I don't think I've ever watched the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I've seen clips of it. I've never actually watched it.
I would watch it if it had a thing of my idol.
Well, it's just so kind of funny though. It's like, you know, it's like you're watching it. And it's like, yep, and here comes Underdog. Okay.
I have seen some of the YouTube videos of those giant inflatables getting caught on buildings.
Right.
Those are fun to watch.
No,
Right.
but I mean, I think all I like about
Queensway.
there's like a sameness to it, really, for me, where it's not like in the old days. One of the funniest memories we ever have, like one year, you know, my dad is a great source of comedy. He forgot to cut the chestnuts; they blew up in the oven.
Oh, jeez.
But we had the best one, baby. Like with 3 stairs that went down to the house. So there's like a railing, and you just throw your coat there. So like I must have thrown my coat and missed. It was on the stairs. So my dad gets the turkey. He's going to take it down. He goes flying with the turkey.
Oh, wow. That's awful. Poor turkey.
I was thinking the other day, like, what if the original Thanksgiving dinner was not a turkey? It was like a flamingo or a swan or something. I mean, it's still a bird, right? I mean, it could have been a Thanksgiving bird. I don't know. You know.
What if they were starving and they ate some of their fellow colonizers and that was the original Thanksgiving dinner?
It could almost be like Festivus in the old style, like we need to sacrifice one of the group.
Yeah, right.
No, but I mean that's still. But a lot of people like they've been going out with the question about is there a favorite
You're
side
doing a great
you
thing
like
for the group here.
I love mashed potatoes.
Oh, me too.
Mashed potatoes with butter and gravy. Unbelievable.
Well, since I was sick there, that's like my go-to. You know, it's like one of the things I can eat that doesn't.
Guess that's the Irish side of me coming out.
I just remember, though, too, going to Springdale Farm. We still go down there. Sometimes see Ricky the Hog. But there's field trips down there, and they have this biggest turkey I've ever seen there. It's like a real big gobbler. So it's like, turkey, you're a kid. It looks really cool. Flows out this huge fart on you.
Wow.
It was a big turkey.
You know, talking about Thanksgiving and the native issues, my cousin who I was with last week, he shared something via Messenger the following day, which was Thanksgiving was the first welfare line.
I like that.
So that's a different perspective, and I totally understand where he's coming from on it. But my memory of Thanksgiving when I was young was the entire family, meaning all of the aunts, uncles, and cousins would come together in one place, and we'd all have dinner. It would be 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and after everybody was done stuffing themselves silly, the men would go into the living room to watch football, and the women would clean up whatever was left over. And that's just the way it happened.
So you're talking about the good old days, is what you're talking about.
Well, the good old. You know, I was never into football, and I was never into cleaning up really either. I hated that.
Right.
But it is what it is. You got to do it.
Well, there is the big political divide, though. Clear or berry cranberry sauce.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mind either one of them.
Yeah.
I like them both.
Yeah. I was the same way, though. I would just watch the games because everybody else did.
Well, what we did when we were kids, we would have, everybody had, our neighborhood had turkey bowls. Yeah. You know, the football game we played.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to my friend Rob about, like, the days of our pickup football team. We used to get, this is like, in high school, we would come and destroy, like, high school teams, and they would keep bringing more people, and we would keep beating them.
That's awesome.
But I remember once when I was younger, I got involved with one of those things where you brought meals to people, and that really made me feel good. And some of these, I mean, some of the folks, you show up with this bag of stuff, and they're just like over the moon, you know, and you're just, and they really were thankful for it. I mean, hence the whole thing, I guess. But, you know, that kind of stuff, if it was more along those lines, I mean, I guess, then I think that's the true spirit, just like Christmas. The true spirit is peace and goodwill and all that. So holidays have just gotten so wacky.
I've gotten grumpy about like that little ever since like that hooker in the motorized wheelchair asked me for money for drugs. It's really just traumatized me. I was like trying to be.
I think I'm traumatized right now.
I'm trying to imagine some of the things. Never mind.
Oh my goodness!
And it just did. I said I'm done. You know, for a while, like somebody, I guess for to size somebody up, maybe here was like done.
You get to ride on the chair. Well, never mind.
Oh, and Greg complained about for Thanksgiving, people laughing at Nosferatu for clearing a coffin.
Yeah, well,
John's looking at us. Oh, these guys smoked something before we came here.
All right, here's a question for you: white or dark meat?
white.
Rob?
White.
I'm a dark meat guy.
All right.
But I like them both. I'll definitely choose the dark meat before the white. I like the oily, rich flavor of the dark meat.
I like dark meat maybe as leftovers. Sometimes because it's crispy, like you said.
Mixed. Yeah, I like the crispy. But then, Greg, I think John was looking at this like, what are you talking about for Nosferatu in the coffin?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the silent Dracula.
Oh, I'm aware of I'm aware of what Nosferatu is.
But there was that one scene where he shows up in the village and he's carrying the big coffin and it's cranked high, over cranked, and he's fast and everybody's laughing. And I started, they're supposed to be strong, so of course he could carry But the whole concept is like when the average person moves to a place, he's got a few suitcases and stuff. This guy's got his well, I got everything I need.
His luggage.
Yeah.
A coffin and some dirt from the homeland.
I see a lot more weird things on Monroe Avenue late night than seeing carrying a coffin.
Probably some that were scarier too.
That's another issue, man. Monroe Avenue is to me, is turned into the Bowery. It's just a shame what's going on with that. But
30 years ago, I worked for a guy. And we were doing door-to-door sales, and 30 years ago, we had a group of people, 10 or 15 of us, that were doing door-to-door sales. And out of the group, there was 2 or 3 of us that were on Monroe Avenue in 1 week. And the guy's commentary was, why would you go to the armpit of Monroe County to try to sell what we're selling?
Wow. Well, there you go.
Now, I have a lot more pleasant memories of Monroe Avenue than
Me
that,
too.
for sure.
Yeah, I bet some of your most pleasant memories you can't remember.
Well, there's been some of those, too.
I remember the Pope Park Avenue, that whole, when I was in school and stuff, and you could get a house, you get a bunch of guys in a house, and everybody kicks in $80 a month or something, and you could have a house, or half a house. And all the stores were nice, and you had the bars, and
Just for the listeners' sake, Greg did just turn 70. This was a while ago.
Yes, right. And I seem to remember life used to be better than it is now. Nothing's good now. Nothing.
Rotten kids.
Nothing. No respect.
Back in my day.
But seriously, then the prices changed. You had the oil embargo. Then all these weird things started to happen in the late 70s.
Everything changes, I know. It's like it's one of the weirdest things.
Like
constant,
right?
When I lived in Alexandria and I came back here, it's like, well, first thing, I almost died because I'm going to go back to my parents' house. I didn't realize they dug out the road and you dipped all it. I almost went flying like Evel Knievel.
Wow.
But I think everything, I want to do a serious study. Everything went to hell when Tahoe started closing at 8 o'clock.
That's right.
Oh, what a terrible time.
But who knows? But there is a lot to be thankful for. We're here.
Yeah, it's great. It's just become an early night situation lately, and nothing stays open past 10. By midnight last night, we were packed up. The bar was shut. The chairs were on the bar, and 11:30.
I talk actually to Bobby Teal out at the Bug John. We keep going. Like Bobby's Bobby's one of his funniest lines is like, well, the kids go to Water Street. They started his concert at 6. They go, man, I'm not even up by. I used to not even be up by then.
I know. It's true.
I said, man, the first time I ever came here, it said show at 9. I'm sitting there, and everybody's like, what's this idiot doing here? And
Buffalo, you don't start till 10. Sometimes 10:30.
Well, they're open till 4 though, too. I think.
Yeah, but only certain counties.
But I remember Eric Wachowski and I were talking, and I was saying we should really talk about some of the early days of the Bug Jar. Because he looks at me and go, either of us remember those days.
Yeah.
But I remember they wouldn't even start till after 12, but now they are trying to
move it up.
Yeah.
And then plus it gives you a chance to go to other places. If you can kind of figure out your night, well, a couple hours here, a couple hours there, then you can kind of pub crawl.
New fun place. Shout out to Hannah Widener and her Kenny Montgomery thing's really fun too. But my mom's home booking, they do Little Shop of Hoarders once a month. And you go there, it's like you have to be out by 10, and it's a lot of fun. It's just a really mellow, sort of low-key thing.
What time was that show you saw? With
8 o'clock. It was over by 11.
Well, that's well, there you go. I mean, but that's pretty reasonable. That's what I did last night, 8 to 11. And that's the other thing. Everything is 3 hours now, and there's no more 4 hours. I mean, there's no more 10 to 2 and all that, 9 to 1. I mean, it's okay. I mean,
how would you like to
bang
back like in the days of the 60s, like the Beatles or something? Well, Greg, we're going to play 7 2-hour sets today. It'll be easy.
8 hours.
Can you even imagine
8
that?
Hours. Yeah.
What is that? That was their time in Germany, right? Where they were doing 10-hour days or 12-hour days. I can't even imagine.
Taking those little white pills.
I wish I'd see it. There's some photo out there. It's got to be where I guess like they came out. John's got a toilet seat around his head.
I just started watching a thing yesterday. It was a documentary, Quello. And it was the Beatles, the early years, they called it. And it was kind of cool. They had, modern interviews with, Pete Best and their first manager and things like that. And they were the guy was pretty straight up. He said, well, we didn't know we were going to make history. We were just doing it, going with the flow,
The Stones were the Stones.
Yeah.
Who were they? They were just, if things didn't go that way, who knows what. I think Paul could have been like a Cliff Richards type pop guy.
Probably.
But you might, John probably be in jail. But George I think Ringo or George was going to, big thing for them going to the civil service like Pete Best did.
Well, they've said it many times in interviews. They were a gang. They weren't criminals.
So you get a civil service job. You were whatever happened. There's a lot of theories. And you're going on your civil service job. You're going to retire. Then the anthology comes out, and you're over a million.
Yeah, right.
It's like about time.
Yeah.
Throwing the Stones name out there. I did see just online yesterday that scientists have reconstructed what the original man would have looked like, right? And it was wildly like Keith Richards.
He was the original man. So one of my guests I will leave, unless anybody wants to say anything else, I will leave with, and I'll say whoever the song by, but one of my best jokes for a review. Sometimes I like to read bad reviews. It's one of my things. So I see Ruby Tuesday, and I see there's a bad review, and so I comment, I go, if Mick Jagger, Keith Richards are on Winter Summer, you expect them to come fast?
Yeah. So, speaking of real quick of Thanksgiving, Black Friday, I'm going to play at Record Archive at 1 p.m.
Nice.
And later I'm playing at Abilene with this blues guy, which I have no idea who he is. He's from New York City, and I got asked to play it, and I'm going in there cold, so who knows? But it's going to be an interesting day.
You come up, you say, okay, I'm ready to play with the blues guy. Blues? He said bluegrass.
Yeah, right. Where's the fiddle?
Yeah, we want you to beat on one of those washboards.
Okay, I have one.
Yeah, John will be back soon again.
Thanks for having me.
I love it because you're much more.
We have musicians on the
kind of.
We usually have musicians like us or nerds or whatever. Yeah. So, but did anybody get called the turkey when they were kids? My friend Rob and I were going. We used to call each other turkeys. All the time.
All the time.
So I have a fitting.
I still get called a turkey, mainly from my fiance.
But so I thought this was the perfect Thanksgiving song from our good friend Greg Townson. Go see Greg at Abilene on the 22nd of December. He doesn't play much around here. It's an early show.
Okay.
And this is about that one thing that will lead to misery on Thanksgiving, and it's my family reunion. And you know how, and I'll tell you one of the funny stories. That too. But I would take my dog, it was like a tradition, I would take my dog for walks around Unity on Thanksgiving. And all you would see were all the people in emergency from the family fights.
Oh gosh, I know, right? Yeah, well, that's the other thing, man. Holidays are notorious for bringing up bad blood and bad feelings, and who knows? It's like I heard a great line on the Blue Bloods one episode. They were talking about, and you might appreciate this. There's like the one daughter says, "Yeah, well, they have Irish Alzheimer's," and then the guy's like, "What's that?" He goes, they forget everything but the grudge.
That's great. Well, I wish everybody a wonderful Thanksgiving.
All right, same here. Gobble on.
Gobble, gobble.
Uncle Walter, he's just out on parole. Cousin Sue, she'll try to save your soul. Sister Sally is living with a gypsy. Great Aunt Mary, she's more than just tipsy. Grandpa Jim, he's married again. His new wife is number 9 or 10. Take a look, she's out there on the dance floor. Wait and see what she does for an encore. So won't you come right in? Get ready for a ball of confusion. Welcome to my family reunion. My Aunt Emma, she's always been quite rude. Grandma Bess, she'll only eat brown food. My godfather owes me $7,000, and Uncle Joe will try to sell you land. So won't you come right in? Get ready for a ball of confusion. Welcome to my family reunion. And I'm so glad you want to be with me. But will you change your mind when you meet my family? Sister Kate, she'll only dress in black. Her pet snake is crawling up your back. There's Brother Pete on his unicycle. The cops are here to lock up Cousin Michael.